Alrighty, Thursday, June 13th. Taking a look at ES here for quick session recap. Not much as far as an update is concerned for today. Price pretty much showing that contraction that we have talked about so many times in the past. You get the volatility expansion, you want to be expecting a bit of volatility contraction, right? You want to be expecting tighter action with how prices unfold, and that's exactly what we saw today. So coming into the session, main watch for both ES and NQ was how price traded versus that prior day's range. I like to keep it incredibly simple, especially with a session like this where we don't have a lot of true levels of interest to work with. Remember, my definition of a level of interest is higher time frame structure. Anything else outside of that is just going to be considered a reference point. Just going to be talking about reference points, right? So the nearest level of interest here on ES, as far as this morning was concerned, was down into 53.85, right? We're not considering prior day low as a level of interest. That is merely a reference point. Prior day high, just a reference point. So important distinction there. When you see me posting in the chat, reference point versus level of interest, big difference. Plays into the quality of the setup that you're going to have. And again, if you are unfamiliar with how I define an A+ trade, I encourage you to look in the resources tab within the Traders Think Tank. I've got the full write-up there, criteria for an A+ setup, and you will see that it does require that level of interest. So back to today's action. Coming into the sesh, what we were again looking for is how price responded versus that prior day's range. So you have the initial test here. This is following PPI, this candle right through here. You have that initial test of the prior day high. Price rejects that prior day high. Now remember, ES for the past couple of weeks now has been weaker than what we've seen in NQ. Tech has definitely been much stronger compared to the broader S&P 500. We continue to see exactly that with price and how it's unfolding within the near-term structure. So at this time, price in NQ was above the prior day high. ES merely testing the prior day high, and then you pretty much have a rejection there. Now, this is an open right near essentially that near-term volume point of control, but more importantly, it's in the middle of the prior day's range. So if I'm looking at action versus the prior day's range, that means I'm interested in action either versus the prior day high or the prior day low, the edge points. That's going to be where your best opportunity is. So we see prior day high reject. Well, if resistance is rejecting, where's price going to trade into? The near support, right? Which in this case, given that we don't have a lot of structure to work with, simply the prior day low. You may see some action, you may see some interest versus that pre-market low, but the true area of support here, at least in the near term, again, is that prior day's low. So price trades down into the prior day low. That is where we start to see the first real significant bounce. You have a bounce back up into that pre-market low and that upside reference point, 54.30, which was significant from yesterday's session, and it rolls over. Now, you get the blip down into what is an overnight gap, right? Take a look at your regular trading hours chart here. Price just dipping into that gap. Now, an interesting thing here is what you'll see is that if we take the actual fib on this most recent push higher, that's going to be from Tuesday's low up into yesterday's high, you'll see is perfect test to the tick of that 38% fib retracement. So definitely the fibs for this particular move are in play. You want to be keeping an eye on those reference points. So some solid action following the actual bounce and reclaim of the prior day low. This can be thought of as a higher time frame spring, right? You gotta dip below that prior day low, a little bit of a liquidity grab there, and price quickly reclaims that prior day low to trade back up into that near-term volume point of control, just shy of the regular trading hours session high. So that'll be a recap of the ES action for today. As far as Friday session, tomorrow's session, again, going to be going with the most simple approach here and just treating this like a near-term range. So today's low by yesterday's high. Essentially 54.54 by 54.08. Treating that like a near-term range. Expecting, again, most likely, I'm not 100% sure if we have a major, let me double check. I don't think we have a major economic print for tomorrow. Oh, we do have the Michigan consumer sentiment at 10 a.m. So that can usually give a decent move, some decent volatility. But as far as an actual 8:30 a.m. print, there's nothing on the calendar. So tomorrow definitely should be expecting continued action within this near-term range. Not really expecting a major move. And again, it ties in with an idea that we frequently talk about. You have volatility expansion moves followed by contraction. So here's your expansion move, right? Contraction. Here's your expansion move, potential contraction here. If you start to understand how price unfolds and how volatility actually works, you can keep your expectations in line and really set yourself up for better results, honestly, for kind of the easiest way to put it. So that's ES, near-term range, just a 2-session range that I'll be working with for tomorrow. This can break pretty easily. Obviously, these are still just reference points. Hesitant to call them levels of interest just yet until we have even more structure built out on the 30-minute and the 60-minute chart. Now, jumping over to NQ, the approach is going to be pretty similar. Now, NQ, like I had mentioned, remains much stronger, right? Oh, this is the wrong NQM is what we're looking at here. So NQ actually trading above that prior day high this morning. You can see the bounce versus that prior day high during the overnight, that pre-market session right around 6 a.m. Price actually makes a fresh all-time high in the extended hour session there on the back of PPI. Fails to show acceptance above that prior pre-market high, then just rolls over. So you have prior day high failing to hold as support. That actually sets up a nice short opportunity to trade down into the prior day volume point of control. One of the things I had mentioned this morning as the session was underway was that if this, let me get into the intraday here. If this pre-market low, if this prior day high failed, the next real reference point that we had to work with was that prior day volume point of control. And that's what marked the low for the session right through there. And you could see the bounce now back into that prior day high, right? Overall, though, this action, it did bounce there, but take a look at this action, right? A lot of barcode. So not the best, but that is to be expected given the current location and the lack of a high quality setup. And then, like we talked about before, the recent expansion move and now the following contraction. And so what I'll be looking at tomorrow very similarly is 19,450 and treating it as a near-term range, 19,450 by 19,700, essentially just like this. Oh, chart rescaled there right through here, right? So that's the range. Expectations pretty limited for tomorrow. Be looking for an easy money trade around 10 a.m. around that data print. Sometimes we will see some really good action around that print. Other than that, hoping to have an early day tomorrow. So hope everyone had a good one today. Caught a couple of decent opportunities. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot me a DM. Otherwise, I will see you tomorrow morning. Have a good evening.